Hey there, I'm Brandon, and today is finally the day. If you couldn't guess, it's my birthday, which means I'm one step closer to being able to legally play Udraw Studios and buy moonshine. Yep, I'm getting pretty psyched to gain respect from people younger than me to make me feel a lot better about myself. Hell, I even wrote down some birthday wishes just for the occasion. Hopefully one day I can find happiness, a girlfriend, and a new 2D Mario for the DS. Eh, 1 out of 3. Super Mario World and New Super Mario Bros. DS. One game I was introduced to via pirated ROM, and the other my sister's stolen DS. I was a fucking monster. These are both 2D platformers released in 1990 and 2006 respectively, while at the same time being some of the best games for the consoles they were released on. Now, here we are 15 years later, and I get to compare both the games to see which one is better from a technical standpoint, which is just the nicer way of saying here. Also, we're going to be determining this by score. There will be several categories, and whichever game proves to excel more in said category will receive a point. The one with the most points at the end is the better game, with no questions asked. Got it? No. Good, here we go. So, to start this off, let's go over and compare one of the most important features of a video game when it comes to first impressions: the look. Basically, which one looks nicer upon first glance. Now, keep in mind these titles both have completely different art styles. For instance, New Super Mario Bros. Uses a mix between 3D models and 2D sprites. Mario himself is a 3D model, while things like the power-up and coins are flat images that swap between frames to make it appear animated. But Super Mario World, on the other hand, only uses 2D sprites, as the concept of 3D in games was just in its beginning stages. But that doesn't really mean much. Pixel art and video games still hold up well even to this day. Hell, sometimes they even look better than other 3D titles. So, to probably no one's surprise, I'm going to have to give the point to Super Mario World. While both look nice, New Super Mario Bros. Definitely appears a lot more dated, as the DS couldn't really handle too many polygons for models, with the added problem of a pretty small resolution, leading to Mario looking like he's trying to be censored more than anything else. While on the other hand, Super Mario World sprites still hold up and look very nice to this day. Plus, it's just way more stylized and iconic. Alright, next up here on our topics is the gameplay. And by that I mean which game plays better and is more fun in terms of controls. Okay, now before I give my point here, I will say Super Mario World and New Super are both really enjoyable to play. There hasn't really been a moment where I felt it was the game's fault I died, for the most part. Each has a very nice and fluid control scheme, I have nothing to complain about there, but for this category I am going to have to give it to New Super Mario Bros. Solely because of the extra abilities that are added to Mario's arsenal. Wall kick, ground pound, triple jump, you can do all of that, it's great. And what's more is that they're actually useful. Surprisingly, they flow well with the gameplay and are easy enough to pull off. While Super Mario World, on the other hand, yeah, you can't really do any of that there. Granted, there's like a spin move you can use, but it's just kind of okay. You don't see me flaunting that around. This game shouldn't either. Moving on to our third category here, the power-ups. We're going to look at the new items included in each game and basically determine which one had the best variety. Starting with Super Mario World, we were introduced to 3 new power-ups to help us throughout the game. First off, there's the Cape Feather, which gives Mario a cape and allows him to take off into the sky after running at full speed, and if skilled enough you can manage to stay in the air, essentially bypassing the whole level. After that, there's the Power Balloon that gives you the ability to float slowly in the air for a short period of time. And finally, there's the Yoshi Wings, which are a power-up for Yoshi that allows him to fly. I believe they call that theming. In all seriousness though, these are actually really fun to use despite them all being kinda similar. The only one out of the bunch I can see myself having a problem with is the Power Balloon, and even then you rarely see it throughout the game. Plus, when you do, it's usually in a level that complements the power-up. So those are great and all, but what does New Super Mario Bros. Have? Well, we got the Mega Mushroom that lets you grow to a massive size as you pretty much destroy everything for a short while. The Mini Mushroom, which is less of a power-up and more of a downgrade, its only purpose being to let you access certain areas you wouldn't be able to otherwise. Also, to get to Worlds 4 and 7, you have to beat the previous world's boss as Mini Mario, which is kind of a nice challenge, but it doesn't really make me enjoy the Mini Mushroom anymore. The problem with it is, it just makes your jumps way too floaty, plus one hit and you're dead. Oh, and lastly there's the Blue Shell, which when running at max speed turns you into an uncontrollable spinning mess similar to what happens when you kick a normal Koopa shell. You'll just bounce all over the place while being unable to control your direction. Funny enough, when I played this game for the first time, I actually enjoyed this power-up. But don't worry, I already lost respect for myself a long while ago, so I don't have to start now. So, if it wasn't completely obvious, Super Mario World undoubtedly gets the point here. This game's power-ups are just far better and more enjoyable compared to New Super Mario Bros. Granted, I will say the Mega Mushroom isn't too bad, but even then it's more gimmicky and made purely for marketing, if anything. Plus, the rest are just kinda garbage. Okay, so this next category was honestly the most difficult to decide on, that being the levels. Playing through both games is honestly such a great time, and very few moments did I find myself annoyed with how a level was set up. But in the end, I believe this point should go to New Super Mario Bros., purely because of how much more creative the levels get. There's one where you run from a giant eel, another that takes place entirely on a wiggler's back, and the final level even has you flipping the stage around. It's all just really nice. I love the little gimmicks thrown into these levels to keep them fresh and liven up the gameplay. Now, that's not to discredit Super Mario World. A lot of these things were only possible because the DS was a far more powerful console than the SNES, and even World had its fair share of gimmicks placed in certain levels, like the skull raft and the triangle that lets you run up walls. Plus, that's not even mentioning the way superior boss fights this game has. This was only the second time the Koopalings were ever seen in a Mario game, and they were much more challenging than whatever the hell this was trying to be. Listen, jumping on their head 3 times is not the only way to beat a boss, and even if it was, you didn't have to make them so goddamn easy. I don't care how unique and quirky they are, if I'd beat it in like 2 seconds, I'm not gonna care. However, in the end, I definitely found myself enjoying New Super Mario Bros. Levels a lot more. Moving on, our next category here is the extra content. To be more specific, I'm talking about anything added to give the player more to do besides just playing through the main story. First off, looking at Super Mario World, you'll find these little warp pads throughout the world map that'll take you to a special world. In it is a collection of levels that all have their own secret exits you need to find, with the inclusion of baby Yoshis and multicolored Yoshis. After that, you'll find another warp pad that'll take you to Star Road, which is the game's final special world. Here you'll find what is probably the best and most bullshit levels in the game. Yeah, these levels are hard, but it kinda adds to the fun. They're not unfair, just challenging, and that's honestly the best part about them. So, after beating all those levels, you're rewarded with what I'm assuming is an autumn theme for the world map, as well as having all the shells replaced with Mario heads. Yeah, that's just as confusing as it sounds. But for the most part, all of this is just a nice inclusion that adds on to the playtime. Now, switching over to New Super Mario Bros., there technically is something you can unlock after beating the game and putting in a certain combination of buttons, called the challenge mode, but all it really does is prevent you from going backwards in levels. Whoa. However, this is not all that's offered with the game. On the title screen, there's an extra mode called minigames, and by god, these are great. Essentially, all it is a collection of small minigames that include, but are not limited to, theft, abuse, illegal stunts, gambling, criminals, decapitation, bombing, bullshit, and just being a dick. And what's even better is you can play all these minigames with friends in multiplayer. It's very easy too, all you gotta do is find someone else with a DS. What are you, out of your fucking mind? However, playing these on your own can get kinda repetitive. Once I played them, I didn't really care to go back to them. As a kid, however, I was able to get plenty of mileage out of it, but now not as much, so take that for what it's worth. But yeah, they definitely feel as if they were designed more for multiplayer. However, that doesn't mean I think they're bad, they're just not for me. So, funny enough, I'm actually going to give both games a point here. When all was said and done, both had plenty of extra content left after the main game was done, and on top of that, I had fun with them too. And for our last topic here, the multiplayer. Okay, this one is kinda obvious. While there's nothing wrong with the turn-based style of Super Mario World, where essentially if one player dies or completes a level, it becomes the other player's turn, New Super Mario Bros. Absolutely tops that completely with its versus mode. Basically, it's a competition between 2 players as they fight to collect the most stars in a stage while also trying to fuck over the other opponent. Damaging other players will cause them to lose a star, and there's plenty of ways to go about that. Jump on them, use power-ups against them, you're pretty much using all the game's abilities to your advantage, and my god, it is fun. It's also very simple to get started, all you gotta do is find someone with a DS. Yep, alright, New Super Mario Bros. 1. You know, funny enough, when I first thought of the idea for comparing these 2 games, I believed that Super Mario World would actually be the victor, as it's more iconic and definitely has the bigger fan base. So, I was surprised when I started favoring New Super Mario Bros. More. I grew up with both, so it's not like I had a nostalgia bias either. Looking back, however, I guess it kinda makes sense though. Super Mario World came out at a time where 2D Mario platformers were being made constantly, and ideas were most likely running thin, especially ones that could run on the SNES. And New Super Mario Mario was a return to this genre. Back when it first released, there hadn't been a 2D Mario in 14 years. I'm sure the staff at Nintendo had tons of ideas after all that time. However, their ability to be good for the most part is another thing entirely. Nintendo is the company that loves to experiment and try new things all the time, and when they do, it's usually a hit or miss. And while New Super Mario Bros. Came out victorious here, there will still be times where I want to play Mario World instead, because they're just both fucking good games. What? Wait, so then what was the point of it? Was there a point to this? Was there something we were supposed to... I know I had something here. Well... Oh, that's what it was.